Hey, I thought I'd do a video about something that I keep hearing about men with like six figures or like high value men and everything and how they can do so much. I've dated plenty of guys that make six figures and they're kind of broke because in the area I live in, it depends on where you live and if six figures is a lot. I've dated plenty of guys that make over $100,000 or whatever, but they're like struggling financially because they want to have a car, they want to live like in the metro, the immediate metro area. They want to do all this stuff. They want a vacation. They want to have their own apartment. And it's like, that's a struggle if you want to live directly in the metro area where you can like just drive to work. And then driving to work, that's like, you need to have money if you want to drive to work. It's one thing to have a car, but to drive to work, because some places are like $20 a day, or if you can't get in there it might cost like a few $100s a month. And then if you get a car and you want to and you live in a building, sometimes you have to pay a couple of $100s a month to even park in your building, on top of like if you choose to live in a nice area, not so nice area, what part of the metro area you want to live in. Because like, say if you want to live in San Francisco in like a nice area and you're trying to pay $3,000, that's probably not going to happen. You probably have to get a roommate and end up paying like $3,000 with a roommate or something. Yeah, because like people are like, oh, six figures is a lot of money. Like in San Francisco, Bay Area, Northern California, making only $100,000 and you want to live in the direct metro area, like that's a struggle. That's like $100,000 is like borderline poverty. Because like they say in San Francisco, if you're a family of four, two adults and two kids, and you only make like $117,000, you're basically in poverty. You can get government benefits, you can live in public housing. And like somebody in like another part of the country, they're thinking like, oh, I make $117,000 a year and I have two kids and a married couple. You're thinking like, oh, that's a lot of money. And like in the Bay Area, it's like you're struggling. And then also, if you have kids and they're in daycare and stuff, like that's like 3,000, almost $3,000 a month per kid. So you're paying like almost $6,000, if not more, depending on where you want to send your kid for daycare. Unless, because like they have like Head Start and stuff where you would qualify for that being low income, but you have to be able to have space to get in. And it's hard to get in because there's not enough space because so many people are considered low income. Yeah, so it's like when I hear this stuff and then saying people that are saying they're struggling on like 100,000 or whatever, and people are saying like, oh, they're like spoiled or whatever, entitled. It's like not entitlement, just where you live is so expensive. Yeah, because it's like really kind of sad because you're thinking like, oh, I finally made it. I make 100,000 or more, and it's like I wanted all this, but I'm struggling. And then like you see like everybody's like driving around in like Teslas, Ferraris, BMWs, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, they're driving around in it, but then they're also struggling and stuff sometimes. And then it's like people are like, oh, it's so cool to have a Tesla. It's like, I know people like in high school that are like driving Teslas, and then like you have a kid and you want to get your kid a car, and then all that other stuff, gas, and then commuting to work. Because it's like I couldn't imagine if it's like bad enough my commute now just to get to work sometimes is like $50, like round trip to get to work per day. I could, and then because I do like multiple different things, like sometimes it might cost me like $50, sometimes it might cost me like $20 or so to get to work depending on the area I'm working in. But like people are like, oh, you take the bus because it's cheap. It's like the bus is expensive. Just like one way to work is like $15 sometimes, like depending on where I go to work. can be like $15 just to get to like some places, and then I get to where I'm going, then I have to transfer and pay again. And then sometimes, depending on where I go, because I live outside the metro area, I live in like the overall community, but outside the major metro area where I have to commute, and that can suck. And then it's like, you don't want to drive, because if you drive, you can end up stuck in traffic for like 2 to 3 hours because the traffic does not move. And it's only a 2-lane road. So everybody's leaving around the same time on a 2-lane road. So you're going to be stuck in traffic for a while. So it's easier to take a bus or a commuter train or whatever. And then that stuff adds up, because then it takes you to like another metro area, but it's still a small metro area where you need to get to a bigger metro area to get to a job with a decent wage and where there are a lot of options. Yeah, because like when I tell people where I live, they're like, where is that? And I'm like, yeah, you don't live that far away from me. Yeah, but making $100,000, people are like, it's just like a perspective type thing. Because some places, like I imagine if I lived in Texas, $100,000 would be a lot. Because I was thinking about moving to Texas, because I was thinking about moving there. Then this guy, like randomly, he's like, he's moving there, his company's moving there. He's like, how would you feel about moving to Texas? And I'm like, I'm not moving to Texas with you. If I move there, I'm moving on my own, buying my own place. Because it's like Texas. I was even thinking about moving to Texas or Oregon and commuting back to work, because it's like, I really like my job and I get like 2 months of vacation a year. And if I went to go work somewhere else, I would have to show up more, because I've been at my job so long. I get 2 months off of vacation, and I really don't want to change that. And I only work 3 days a week, unless I go to like one of my side jobs. But it's kind of crazy, because like people are like making people feel bad because they're struggling and it's hard. And I couldn't imagine. It's like, I'm doing fine, I'm single, I don't have any kids, but I couldn't imagine if I had kids and I had to try and survive off like $100,000, or like, because they say in California, a husband, wife, or married couple, two income, or an income of $117,000, and then 2 kids. That is, I wouldn't know what to do. I would just be like, that it would be a struggle. And if they're of age where they need to go to childcare, and then you guys can't get your schedules together where you can work different shifts to avoid paying childcare. Yeah, because there are places where you can get childcare cheaper, but it's like where it's not Head Start, but you have to be in like that area, and those places probably have a long wait list. Yeah, because I know when I used to be an early education teacher, it was like $2,300 per child a month, and that was if you were potty trained. But if you're not potty trained, that goes up. The price goes up. But it was a waiting list for that because it was considered affordable. But then this other school I worked at, and it was like $3,000 and up. So it's like, I could not imagine having to pay like $6,000 a month for childcare plus rent. And like, you can pay like $4,000 for rent, and you don't even live in that great of an area, and your place could be tiny. So that's like already like $10,000 right there. And it's like, how can you afford to eat if your total income is $117 or so, or less? How can you afford to eat? How can you afford to go anywhere or do anything? That would just be like so depressing. Yeah. But then like, there are other people that work around the area and everything, but they don't live in the area, because a lot of people commute from like the Central Valley. Yeah, because I've met a lot of people that commute from like Sacramento, Stockton, Tracy, all out over that way. And then as far and like up like Clear Lake over past Sacramento and stuff, and they'll come commute for a few days. But one thing that was interesting, when I was in New York, well, you saw my video when I was in Connecticut, but when I was in New York, not that long ago, because you just saw the video I just posted, but I didn't really post anything else. But I met a lady in New York, and she was like, she takes the train like twice a week from Connecticut to New York. And I met a few other people. They're like, they take the train into New York a few days a week, and they're like, they were doing this before COVID and stuff, and they're still doing it after, because they can make a better wage, and they just take a trip that's like 2-3 hours. Yeah, and like people go up to Boston, like Connecticut, all over there. Yeah, because I took a train trip around the country, and I met like people, and they like have like these big commutes. It was interesting. But it's like people think like, oh, like you make 100,000, you make 150,000, you have like this great life and everything, you can afford so much. And it's like, you might be able to afford stuff because you save stuff, but a lot of people are struggling, and then people want to do stuff, and like people will buy like a Tesla and stuff, and they're trying to do this, or they know somebody where they can get a discount or something. And it's like, it's all like, there's a lot of show trying to like keep up with other people, because it's like a lot of people are struggling, but they're buying all this stuff, doing this stuff on credit, so you don't really realize how much they're struggling. But I just, because like there was this one girl, she was like, she grew up in California or something, and like 100,000 is not a lot to her, but if someone offered it, she'd take it. But when you think about it, if you had to pay like, because like imagine if you paid $3,000 in rent, and there's crackheads going to the bathroom and living in front of your apartment or whatever, and you're paying $3,000 in rent a month, and you're in a high crime neighborhood. That's not a luxury. And then you're walking outside, and it's like so dangerous, because that's how some neighborhoods are in San Francisco, even in like San Jose. Because I was just in San Francisco and San Jose, and it's like, those cities are really expensive and everything. I would never want to live in them, because you walk outside, there's crime. Because I was watching the news, and there was this woman, she lived in San Francisco, then she moved away up to like Tahoe. She walked into a business, and then someone stole, I think she said she had like a Louis Vuitton purse. Somebody stole her Louis Vuitton purse. She tried to catch him. She jumped on him, and then ended up with a concussion and stuff. And it was just like crazy. And then like somebody, because like even like Oakland is expensive, not as expensive, but they like the nicer areas. Because it's like in Oakland for like $3,000, you could probably get into a nicer area, but still you leave your house, there's crime, and then there are no amenities. But in San Francisco, they at least still have like some amenities and everything. But there's like tons of like, even in the nice areas in San Francisco, like the homeless spread out, because you can take the bus everywhere, and they'll let you on the bus everywhere and go everywhere. Because I remember there have been a few, I've been on the bus in San Francisco, and knife fights have broken out, fist fights have broken out. And then someone, one thing I did appreciate when I was in San Francisco, like if someone goes to the bathroom on the bus, they'll take the bus out of service. I was on a bus somewhere else, and somebody went to the bathroom on the bus. They didn't take the bus out of service, because if they took the bus out of service, all the people would be screwed, because no bus would come for another hour. So they just took the bus into the inn, and then, yeah. But sometimes it can, you have, like when you think about like judging and saying, oh, these people are like so shallow, they don't know what it's like. Because like in some places, like when I watch HGTV, I love HGTV. And then I watch, what is that show? It used to come on, but then they changed the name. It was like with Chip and Joanna Gaines, like they were buying houses for people for like $20,000. It's like, I wish I could buy a house for $20,000. I can't even buy a burnt down shack or a hole in the ground, like an actual hole in the ground for $20,000 on a decent piece of land. If I want a decent piece of land, you need to spend at least a couple of $100,000 to get a piece of land, a good piece of land with nothing on it. And to get a nice house with something on it, you need to spend at least over $1 million. And even if you spend $1 million, you might not get something good. You might get something that's like burnt down and all messed up, close to $1 million or over. Which is crazy, because you're thinking like, like there's this new development that I saw, and they built all these condos or townhouses. They're so close together. There's like no outdoor space. There's barely any parking. It just looks horrible and tiny. And it kind of reminded me of that development that I saw in Fremont. I think they're still building it, because they built like this whole neighborhood where it looks kind of made me think of like some kind of horror movie I saw, where it's like all these places, they look the same, not like a traditional neighborhood. They're like townhomes, and they're all the same, like directly, because there was like this horror movie I saw. It was with that guy. What is that guy's name? I don't generally watch his movies, but it seemed interesting. It was like him and his girlfriend. They went into this neighborhood, and it was like a suburb, and everything looked the same, like in like those neighborhoods you see where everything looks the same. And it was like they got lost. They kept trying to find their way out, and they couldn't get out until they died. And then like boxes of food were being delivered, and to be like the traditional like suburban family, they gave them a kid, and then it was like they got rid of the kid and all this stuff. It was like this crazy movie. Who was that starring? I can't think of who it was starring, but it was a interesting movie, and it just made me think of like that neighborhood I saw in Fremont when they were building it. Yeah. Oh. But there's so many neighborhoods like that being built, and they've been building them since I think like the 90s, where it's like weird, and it's like modern houses. I don't like them. Like how they have like the HOAs and stuff. I do not like that. I don't like the houses that look all the same and everything. I like more of a house that's built like in the 50s, 60s, with like old fashioned vibes and stuff, or a Victorian. Yeah, it's just like when you think about saying like, oh, somebody's so lucky to have this, you have to think about where they live. Because when I think about it, like in some places, people might live really well off like 20 or $30,000. I'm assuming if you can buy a house and you're in a nice neighborhood for $20,000, you must be living really well. And like you could live off like, because if you're paying that mortgage off over 30 years, and you just make like I would assume you could pay it off with like a part-time job. I don't know, but that just seems like really great. And it's like I would totally move there, but it's like cultural differences and all that stuff, and I'd have to understand, because it's like some things that you think are like normal in California, and you go other places and it's like that's not normal. Yeah, like even like if you're in San Francisco, if you live in San Francisco, things that are normal to you when you leave San Francisco are not normal to other people. Because it's like so crazy. But yeah, they keep talking about like these high value men, and it's like I know plenty of men that make like 100,000 plus. It's like this is where you go. And then I was watching something where they're talking about, oh, dating a guy in tech that's high value and everything. It's like, who hasn't dated a guy in tech? It's like you try not to date a guy in tech, but it's like so hard to find a guy that's not in tech to date. So it's like, why is it such a big deal? I guess in like some places, but it's like basically like almost every guy you meet is in tech or something, or does something for a tech company. And you're trying to find somebody that's like not in tech, and you're like, oh, he's a high value man because he's in tech. That means like basically every guy is a high value guy. And then it sounds like disturbing when they're like, oh, all these women are like gold diggers and stuff. And it's like, that's like really weird. I don't know. I guess I just see like a different side of things, because most of the time when I was growing up, pretty much everybody was rich and all that stuff, because it was like, yeah, you live in one of the suburbs, you have money. Because it's like, of course, you have money. You might not show off you have money, but to buy a house or anything, even back then, you need to have at least $1 million something to buy a house. And it was like they didn't really have small houses, and everything was big, and it wasn't like new money or anything, or like new houses, because they don't really build anything there. It's like everything is like older, nice, well kept, everything. But it's always interesting to hear like different perspectives on stuff, and it's like, yeah, I don't understand those perspectives, but it's always interesting to hear. If you like, listen, watch, subscribe, be a supporter, and thanks for watching. Bye.